did you ever come across any CIA connections with the elections at all?
No, there's a story in my book that talks about the CIA.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, the story in the book was on my first campaign. One of the counties I was tasked with organizing was Hudson County, which has a large Cuban population, and I was kind of being introduced to things by the county chairman up there, and he took me to a meeting, and he said,
Tell him you're CIA.
well, he didn't say that. He just said, don't say anything, and I was kind of, the way it's described in the book is more or less accurate. You know, you're trying to bring some drama to it as well, but I was kind of on the other side of the room, so I couldn't really hear what was going on. And afterwards, all he said was, look serious, keep your hands in your pocket, and wear a trench coat if you have one. And so afterwards, I was like, yeah, what was that all about? And he said, oh, I told them they're CIA. They'll do anything I want them to. So no, but I never encountered the CIA. Absolutely not.
You never came across Bob Gates or Tennant or anything?
No.
Now, about vote caging. You've heard of vote caging?
Yeah, sure.
Were you ever involved with any of that stuff?
Well, you know, vote caging is, I mean, I remember I went to a Republican National Committee Campaign Management College back in '92. It was at Fair Oaks Mall in Fairfax, in fact. And, you know, part of, it's a three or 5 day, I can't remember, 5-day intensive course, and it's designed to kind of replicate the campaign experience. They keep you up late, you know, deprive you of sleep, that type of thing. But because of the assignments they give you, you know, they really overwhelm you with work. And so, you know, and then you go, during the course of the day, you go through lectures. And one of the lectures was, no, I don't think they called it vote caging at the time. What they called it was ballot, you know, when you're talking about vote caging, you say vote or ballot integrity or ballot security is another way to phrase it. And so the idea there is what you do is, you know, you mail certain geopolitical areas, which tend to be where you're going to get transient voters, you know, people who are transient or migratory for whatever reason, which tends to mean lower income and probably tends to mean, in this case, Democrats. And the idea is you mail first-class letters into those areas. They get returned. So that's proof that that person isn't at the address that corresponds to the voter roll or the voter data, the voter file. And then that is grounds for challenge at the polls in that particular district in case those people show up to vote.
So was that something they suggested that you guys do, or what?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. It was taught at the Republican National Committee Campaign Management College. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of the tools that they're teaching you to use. So, you know, you can divine from that what you will, but I mean, that's the institution, you know, telling the people it's training a tactic that can be used.
So, were you using that at all in any of your stuff?
I never really used it, and the reason I never really used it is it's an expensive thing to do. I mean, you have to set aside money to send a bunch of first-class mail into a certain district. That's expensive when you're on a congressional race. That can be hard to do, and you may not have the budget to do it. Now, when I worked for the RNC, I was in the Northeast, which, you know, New Jersey's not in play, New York's not in play, Connecticut's not in play, Pennsylvania fell out of play. So I didn't, you know, a lot of programs that may have been run in other parts of the country, say like Missouri, weren't necessarily run in the Northeast because the Northeast is kind of a write-off. You figure you're going to take your electoral loss.
So, was there ever any discussion about that it might violate the Voting Rights Act or anything like that? Or did they say how to get around that?
Well, I think the idea is that it's, you know, again, it's ballot integrity. So, you know, the argument is because, you know, again, it's not just Republicans who do these types of things. You know, there are stories far and wide of, you know, Democrats busing people in from out of state or busing people around state to vote multiple times. You can go back and look at stories, particularly in New Jersey, you'll find stories to that effect. I think specifically around the Governor Corzine election in 2000. No, now I'm dating myself, but his first election, and so I think the idea there is to be able to. So anyway, your question is, does it violate the Voting Rights Act? I don't know. You'd have to ask an attorney. I mean, certainly that. If the RNC is teaching you, you're going to assume no, when you're kind of a young campaign operative who wants to excel. You would probably look at it in terms of, I'm just trying to verify who I'm going to challenge at the polls. If they don't live at that address, then they don't live at that address, and someone at that address shouldn't be voting then.
What about felon, like trying to knock off the felons off the rolls? Like that?
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, the idea there is that by law, I mean, look, I can't vote. By law, felons aren't supposed to be voting.
Well, it depends on the state.
It certainly depends on the state, and I think Maryland, for instance, is a state that's kind of relaxed those restrictions some. My perspective on that now is, one, we put way too many people in prison. It's just a bad thing that we're doing, and you're disenfranchising them for life potentially if you go for a lifetime ban.
Depends on the state, yeah.
Again, depending on the state, right?
Yeah, in Maryland, once you're done with your supervised release or parole, you can vote.
You can vote,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I know that's a big issue, and I'd like to maybe get to the prison thing in a minute.
Sure.
But when you were starting these dirty tricks, did anybody ever come along and say, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing these things"?
No, probably. I wish they had, but no. And that gets again to the idea that you're hired to engineer victory. I mean, that's the point. It's the golden rule, or more precisely, it's the to the victor goes the spoils.
Right.
No, I wish no, absolutely not.